Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to lesson number 4, episode 4 of the Facebook UIKit series on the Let's Build That App.com channel. I really hope you guys are having a marvelous day. In this lesson, we are going to look at building out a pretty fancy feature inside of our Facebook app here. And the fancy feature is the ability to scroll up on our collection view down here, right? Every time I scroll up, you'll notice that the navigation bar at the very top, it scrolls up with our collection view. And something else that you'll see is that the alpha value will go to 0 as you scroll to somewhere in this area right over there. And there's also this white view covering your status bar at the very top. So hopefully I can get through all I want to get through in today's episode. And by the end, we'll have a nav bar that's pretty fancy, containing the logo, this button here, and also this button on the right side. Hopefully this sounds like a pretty good thing to build out. I think you'll find it pretty useful in your application. So the way I'm going to get started in today's lesson is to go back inside of our project here. Last episode, we have our main controller right here. Main controller renders out a header with the swipey left view. And then down here is our collection view, kind of looking like this. Obviously it's missing some parts, but we're pretty close. Today's lesson, I'm going to start by introducing a nav bar at the very top. And this is very easy. We can go down to our main preview here. It is only rendering out the container view, which is this guy down here. We have our main controller. The way to fix this is to use a navigation controller, use the root here, and then just pump in our main controller, and automatically you'll see a whitish nav bar at the very top. If you want to start introducing some items, let's introduce setup nav bar inside of our main controller, file private function. That's not what I want. File private function, setup nav bar. We want to say maybe something like navigation item dot title equals my nav bar. And here we go. I'm going to restart the preview and pray that we get something at the very top here. All right, this is looking nice. I can just modify this code now. It makes my job recording this video a lot easier. My nav bar. And so something else that you can do in addition to just modifying the text is you can actually say navigation item dot title view and set it to some kind of view here. Now let me do this. Let title view equals UI view, and just to make things a little more visible, let's use the color of yellow. And right over here, right below, we're gonna pop in our title view. You notice that you cannot see these title view components because it's actually controlled through the navigation bar, and it's really hard to get this correct. So let me show you how this is done. Let me use the frame of init 00200 and let's say 50. And once we have that change, we can see our yellow with the width of 200 and the height of 50, or whatever you specify on line 131 here. So that's pretty much how you control things inside of the title using the title view. And one trick to getting all this to work with this element here and these two elements on the right side is to kind of hack in a width value for this entire area. And let's say I use this right here. So let width equals view frame dot width right there. And I will use this instead of the 200. And you'll notice that it now looks like this right here with some edge gaps on the left and the right. Again, this is controlled by the nav bar, so it's pretty hard to modify these values. Last thing I'll do is I want to actually put an image view inside of this title view. So why don't we say let logo or FB logo image view equals some kind of UI image view. I believe I want to use this right here, UI image, and I have the asset of FB logo, and let's use aspect fit here. So this logo is currently inside of my assets. It looks like this guy here. Hopefully you guys can download that and import it into your project if you want to do so. And let me just resume, and again, I'll pray that everything works. So the last thing I'll do to kind of see what's inside of my title view here is to use add subview of my FB logo image view. And the moment that I do this, you'll see it looks really weird, and this image view is extending across the bounds of the title view, which is not good. So one fix that I noticed works really well is to use an H-stack instead. Using LBTA tools, every view has H-stack and a V-stack. So I'm gonna stack things horizontally. First, I'll do FB logo image view. And once I do that and comment out the add subview line, your view kind of looks like this now. And just by default, things get centered in the middle for some reason. Not exactly sure why, but that's what iOS likes to do with the nav bar. And what I'm going to do to fix this issue is I'm going to give this guy some kind of width. So let's use 120. And the moment that I do that, you'll see everything kind of disappears like that. And so I would like to kind of modify this by giving this a UI view over here. So once I do that, you'll see that my view comes back, but it's really centered in the middle. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to give this guy with the width of the entire width value up here. So width is the entire view frame's width. So now it's extending the entire bounds, and it probably ends like somewhere right here. So to make this kind of work a little better, I'm going to subtract 120 from it. And then I noticed that I have some little edges on the right and the left side. So let's subtract another value of 16. So accounting for the 120 here and also the left and right edges of 8 and 8, we get this calculation for the entire empty views width right here. You can give this another color if you wanted to make it a little bit more visible. You can do that. And now this is the entire empty view right here. Okay, so the last thing you might want to do is to introduce some buttons on the right side. I don't have the assets available right now for these buttons, so let me just do this. Let search button equals some kind of UI button right here. And I have this convenient initializer that's called this guy. So let's say search and title color is .black. And with the search button, I'm going to put it on the right of the actual empty view in the red. And so search button looks like that. And if I resume now, so let's give this a width of 60, and I'm going to subtract 60 from here, and hopefully things are going to show up. All right, so with a little bit of hacking and some math, we can get the views to show up pretty much where we want them to go. If you want to add another button, you'll have to add in the math yourself. But this is pretty simple. I would expect most of you guys to be able to kind of do this correctly. Last thing I want to do is for the actual image colors, let's use the color of clear here. And this guy will make things white instead of yellow, and clear for the red. And now we get things to be looking a lot nicer. Okay, with the navigation bar drawn out somewhat correctly now, we are ready to rock and roll with our little feature here that allows us to drag up and down and also modify the alpha value. This is a little bit difficult, and what you really need to realize is that when you're playing around with the collection view down here, so let me hit the play button, so zoom out, hit the play, everything should start working. Maybe I need to hit the resume button as well. And so once everything is kind of going inside of your preview, whenever you drag this collection view right here, right, it does this right now, and everything is kind of hidden underneath the navigation bar. To modify things to be exactly the way you want to override the scroll view did scroll method. And this guy, let's just make it do this. So print scroll view did scroll, or scroll view. So scroll view dot content offset dot y. And let me try to run this using the right click and debug preview. I notice this doesn't work every time, but I'm just going to wait for it. And it's building, it's succeeding, and it's restarting. And once everything is up, you'll see that this method, or this line of code, line 146, it actually gets called whenever everything is laid out for the very first time. So in the very beginning, right, if I drag down, the content offset is now being printed out, and it has this magical value of 88. And it's pretty much the little safe area at the very top. That's the value 8. From all the way up here to down here is a value of 88. It's a very magical value. So inside of here, let's say let magical value or magical safe area top equals 88. I'm just going to set that for now. And I'll show you how to arrive to this 88 value through some code in just a little bit. But using the 88 right here will make things a little bit easier to understand in terms of what I'm doing. So now that we know we have the content offset being changed every time I drag up and down, right? The only trick to getting this to work here is to use a little bit of math here. Let me just do this. I'm going to say navigation controller dot navigation bar dot transform equals to some kind of transform, and you can use the translation one right here. Let's use the value of 0 and 50 and pray that the preview panel does not crash. And so again, this method gets called for the first time the application loads up. And just by default here, you see that the nav bar has been translated down 50 pixels. If I modify that to be 150, it's going to shift even further down like so. Right, here's our logo, and here's our search button. And the final thing that you have to do here is to use a little bit of math to calculate the correct offset for this entire navigation bar as you're scrolling up and down. So I'm going to capture some kind of value called offset, and I'm going to use this right here, scroll view dot content offset dot y, and that's a negative value of 88. So let me add a value of 88 to it. And so finally, I'm going to use the offset here, and maybe I'll use this right here. So the magical safe area offset is 88. Let me use the offset right here. And at the very beginning, I should hopefully see that the nav bar is at the very beginning value up at the very top of just 0. So let me try to rerun this again, and hopefully things should look a little bit better. So let me play, and now the nav bar is up here. And you'll see it kind of does this right here. So that's the effect. Okay, so to fix this issue right here, where things are going in the reverse direction, I'm going to reverse the offset value with a negative right here. And let's try to kind of drag this down right now and drag it up. You'll see the nav bar is now being controlled by the content offset calculation on line 149, the offset. So that looks pretty good. And I believe what you want to do to make sure that if you drag down, right, if you want to make sure that the nav bar stays at the very top, you can use the value of, I believe it's min, or it might be max. So let's see if this works. I always get these calculations wrong the very first couple of times, but this looks good. If the offset is all the way down here, it's just going to use the value of 0. Otherwise, it's going to use a negative value, making it go all the way up to the very top there. Okay, so that is pretty much what I have for the translation transformation. Everything is looking pretty good. And now let's talk about something that's maybe a little bit harder, which is the alpha value here. So as I scroll up, right, you see that the alpha value changes like so. And let's try to calculate the alpha information. So alpha equals some kind of value. Let's use 0.5 and CG float. And let's use the value of Facebook logo image view dot alpha equals to the value at the very top. So I'm just setting up some numbers right here to make sure things are working. You see that if I change this to, let's see, 0.5, it's a little faded out. If I change that to 0.1, it's much faded out like that. Okay, so based on some of the offset values here, I can pretty much calculate what this alpha value needs to be. And I believe it's something like 1 minus scroll view content offset. So offset dot y. And so that's what I have for now. And let's try to scroll this up and down. Things still look pretty okay. And I'm going to add in the value of, let's see, I want to take that and divide by the magical safe area top value. And hopefully this is going to work out. Let me just drag this up right here and drag that down. So that still looks a little bit incorrect. Let me hit a plus right here. This value is always pretty difficult for me to calculate, but once you have that, it kind of looks like this right here. So I'm going to take this value and put a negative in front of it. And once you do that, you can drag down and it kind of has this effect here. Okay, so after playing around with the mathematical calculation just a little bit more, here is the right little bit of syntax that I need. 1 minus the scroll view content offset y. This guy starts at some 88 value or negative 88. And what happens is as I scroll up and down, we are simply setting the alpha value down here as just alpha and not negative alpha. So this gives us that as you scroll down, the alpha value remains pretty solid at a value of 1. So scroll up and that's pretty much the effect that we have. It's pretty much this on the right side here. Okay, so if you want to fade out the search button as well, what you can do is you can take the search button right here, put it up here, and then just do this down below. So let's say the FB logo image view, also the search button right here. And let's say for each and $0 $0 and alpha equals alpha. And I think that's all I need. And so I'm gonna see if the search button fades out along with the Facebook image view on the left side, which should happen. So it's fading out like that. Once you reach all the way up to the very top, everything is completely faded out like so. And that's pretty much what we have. And things are looking quite nice right there. Okay, so the last thing you might want to add is some kind of view at the very top that covers everything like so. And the other question is, where is this magical 88 value coming from? Well, I don't want to get into the explanation too much here, but let me show you a better method of getting this 88 value. And what I'll do is I'm going to paste in some code. And basically, if you grab the entire window and you filter it down using this bit of code, you're basically going to figure out the safe area top using this right here. So safe area insets.top is 0 like so. And so let's see, I'm going to use the safe area top instead of this magical 88 value. And what you can see is that everything is going to work just like it did before. If I scroll up like that, you pretty much get this weirdness right here, which is not what I want. And so now what's going to happen as you scroll up and down is that there's a slight delay before you can actually see the transformation of the nav bar kicking in. And the reason for that is because you still need to take into account here the actual navigation bar height. So let me just take the safe area top and add in this value somewhere right here. I'm going to use this. So let me try to do this right here. So the safe area top is the navigation controller dot navigation bar, which is this right here, dot frame dot height. And I believe I want to wrap all of that and otherwise default that to a 0. So 0 and that. The mathematical calculation is a little bit tricky, but once you have all this in place, what you can see is everything is working pretty much exactly the way I want. And the reason why you want to use this value instead of the magical 88 is because if you now start your application in some kind of, let's say, iPhone 8, the simulator will take into account all of the correct values for the notch. So obviously iPhone 8 does not have this notch area, but you can see this is kind of what you have. The reason why it's showing up like that is because our scene delegate needs to be modified to use a UI navigation controller and a root view controller and that. And finally, I'll rerun my application now in the iPhone 8. And here is what you get. Without the notch, everything is still working out perfectly like so. All right, everybody, that's gonna be it for today's lesson on how to control the navigation bar along with the collection view scroll view. There was definitely a lot of math going on in today's video, so hopefully you were able to follow along. Now, one last thing that I added into this project is the ability to have this cover view at the very top, and all that code is somewhere over here. Let me bring back my code. And so here is the code. If you want to download the code, the source code, you can find the link in the description below or just head on over to letsbuildthatapp.com. Again, the cover view allows us to hide the elements underneath the status bar right here. And again, here is the little bit of code. It might be a little bit confusing, so definitely look it over and ask me any questions if you have any. If you like this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you want to learn more about Swift development, you can check out all of the available courses down in the description box as well. That's gonna be it for today. I will see you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye.